Today, I want to take you on an adventure of grand proportions, an adventure where your choices can change the ending, an adventure where your choices can save or destroy the world. You see, because today I'm taking you into the world of Yoshi, a mobile game where you get to play as Shinto lore Japanese gods, a mobile game where you hold the entire world in your hands. Today, I want to tell you the story of SUSANOO. You see, SUSANOO in the world of Yoshi is the god of execution. But he's not the god of execution because he loves having blood on his hands. He's the god of execution because he wants to protect his friends in the world. But because he's the god of execution, people believe him to be cruel and dignified. But in reality, he's optimistic and positive and cares deeply for humans, thinking as humans as his children like a young father would. And the thing is, he's been protecting humans for thousands of years. Because thousands of years ago, the great white snake Orochi put the 7 deadly sins in the world. And these 7 deadly sins were transformed into 7 evil gods. And these 7 evil gods lived up to the sins that they were created from, inciting fear, hysteria, and panic in the humans on Earth. And because of the fear and hysteria and panic that these 7 evil gods were imparting on the humans that the regular gods cared for so deeply, Takamagahara, also known as the heavenly domain where all of the gods live, decided to imprison Orochi and his 7 deadly sin evil gods away in the prison of God. You see, Takamagahara is a heavenly domain that floats above Earth. It is the domain that all benevolent gods live in, and the only place strong enough to bind things like Orochi and the 7 evil gods. But a god's punishment is not immediate, and thus Orochi and his 7 evil gods were imprisoned in the day that they were to be judged, chosen down the line. But Orochi was not one to sit silent while they were in prison. See, as Orochi sat in this imprisonment, he thought of an idea that would allow him to incite even more fear and panic and hysteria in the humans that he so detested, and at the same time get back at the gods who had imprisoned him. See, Orochi decided that if he couldn't break out of this prison, he would simply take the entirety of the Takamagahara down to the earth. And by making this heavenly domain descend to the earth, it would destroy the earth as it came into contact with it. And not only would the earth be destroyed, but the gods would lose their heavenly abode. And Orochi was capable of this. However, fortunately, Orochi's plan was foreseen. On Earth existed a young man known as Divine Prophet Susabe. And this divine prophet prophesied Orochi's plan to bring the heavenly abode of the gods down to the earth and destroy it. But he also predicted something else. See, Orochi was to enact his plan to bring the Takamagahara down to the surface of the earth during his trial. But Susabe saw this possibility and saw the fact that SUSANOO would enter into combat with Orochi during his trial. And while SUSANOO would be able to seal Orochi once again, SUSANOO would die in the fight. And while obviously SUSANOO had prevented the fall of the heavenly abode down to earth, he died. And Divine Prophet Susabe, having a mountain of respect for SUSANOO, didn't want to see him die, especially because his prophecy didn't end there. Susabe also saw that 1,000 years after SUSANOO and Orochi's battle, that Orochi would once again break out of prison and reincite the war. And since SUSANOO had died in their previous battle, there would be nobody to seal Orochi. And since there would be nobody to seal Orochi, Takamagahara would fall. And with its fall, the earth would be destroyed. So Susabe, in a panic, reached out to SUSANOO and told him about this prophet, about how SUSANOO and Orochi would come into legendary combat, and technically SUSANOO would win, but at the cost of his own life. However, him losing his life would result in the world ending in 1,000 years. So SUSANOO has an idea. SUSANOO tells Divine Prophet Susabe to send him 1,000 years into the future. That way, this past version of SUSANOO would be able to fight the future Orochi, and after he's been victorious in this future, he would return to the past and accept his death in the past version of their first fight. Susabe was upset that SUSANOO would still die in this circumstance, but understood that this was for the greater good of the world, the only thing that SUSANOO was ever truly interested in. And thus SUSANOO was sent 1,000 years into the future. And once SUSANOO gets to this future, he's met by a group of heroes. A group of heroes who call themselves Yoshi. It's at this point that SUSANOO has 3 choices, and you have the power to tell him which one to choose. SUSANOO's first choice is to trust this group of heroes, and trust them so deeply that he reveals to them that he's a god sent from 1,000 years in the past to deal with the great white snake Orochi, a god who had lost his life in a battle against Orochi 1,000 years prior and now had been sent there by a divine prophet to make sure that Orochi was sealed forever. His second choice was to be cool and reserved. This group of heroes didn't know him and he didn't know them. SUSANOO could act collaboratively with this group of heroes. He could tell them that he has an aligned set of interests with these heroes and wants to seal Orochi and the 7 evil gods. And as his relationship with these heroes who he just met grows, he can reveal his true side, his optimism, his dignity, his kindness, and even possibly the fact that he was a god sent 1,000 years in the future to help them. His last choice is not to trust these people who we just met. SUSANOO was 1,000 years in the future, technically 1,000 years after his death. These heroes are not gods he recognizes. For all he knows, they could be on Orochi's side, and by trusting them, he could open himself up to being betrayed later on. Which of these 3 choices would you make? Go to the timestamp in accordance with the choice you've made. Trust, of course, SUSANOO says in his own head. Why wouldn't he trust this group of heroes who's aligned with his own ideologies? If this group of heroes are truly his allies in the battle against Orochi, he should be as open and possible with them as possible, is at least what he thinks. And thus, SUSANOO drops his usual cool, calm, and dignified demeanor and opens up to this group of heroes about how he was a god sent from 1,000 years in the past to assist them in their legendary battle against Orochi. But the group of heroes are put off by this. Why didn't you deal with this 1,000 years ago? If the gods can send people, why didn't they send more? And if you're truly the god of execution, how are we to believe that you're not here to make sure that all humans are executed? And thus the heroes of Onmyoji, erring on the side of caution, decide not to collaborate with SUSANOO. And in fact, they go so far as to imprison SUSANOO under suspicion that he might have actually time traveled to assist Orochi, which leads to Onmyoji fighting valiantly against Orochi, but albeit to no avail. See, without the power of the god of execution, they're unable to seal Orochi once again, and the fall of the heavenly abode occurs, leading to the extinction of humanity as we know it. Why would I trust these people? SUSANOO ponders to himself. I was more than enough to seal Orochi one time. Why would I need a group of heroes who I don't recognize to help me the second time? Where have these heroes come from? Where were they 1,000 years ago? I don't need these wet behind the ear babes to help me in a battle that I am meant to fight. And for all I know, this group of supposed heroes have been ruling over this world with a totalitarian fist. It could even, as far as I know, be aligned with Orochi. I don't need them, and I never did. SUSANOO then separates himself from the Onmyoji heroes and goes out to find Orochi on his own. He heads to the heavenly abode and waits for Orochi to break his seal. And once Orochi finally does break his seal, SUSANOO enters into legendary combat with Orochi. However, this time it's different. In the last 1,000 years, Orochi has acquired new skills, better strengths, and SUSANOO was immediately pressed onto the defensive. And before SUSANOO knows it, he's overwhelmed by this new power of Orochi and the 7 evil gods. And unfortunately, he's felled in combat. Onmyoji then fly into battle against Orochi and the 7 evil gods, but without the assistance of the freshly killed SUSANOO, they are also not successful. And the great white snake Orochi and the 7 evil gods pull the heavenly abode from the sky and crash it into the earth, leading to the extinction of the human race as we know it. Trust is a thing that needs to be gained, thinks SUSANOO. I need to play my cards as close to my chest as possible here. I don't know in the last 1,000 years if the relationship between heroes and gods has deteriorated. I don't know if they know the tale of me sealing Orochi 1,000 years ago, but they seem to have the same ideologies as me. They want Orochi and the 7 evil gods sealed. So let me just disguise myself as a person who's aligned with their interests. No need to overplay my hand. If they want me to join them in battle, then I'll join them in battle. And as we train together and get closer together, I can possibly reveal to them my deeper side, my true side, my godly side. And thus SUSANOO simply wraps himself in the facade of somebody interested in the downfall of Orochi and begins to garner a relationship with the heroes of Onmyoji. As they train together in preparation of Orochi breaking out of his seal, they get closer, and SUSANOO begins to open up to the heroes. They begin to see beyond the cold and dignified stare of SUSANOO and see into the deeper, much more caring and compassionate side of him. They begin to deeply trust this man who seemed to appear out of nowhere. And when Orochi finally does break out of the prison of God once again, the heroes of Onmyoji and SUSANOO fly into combat together. And with the combined strength of the heroes of Onmyoji and SUSANOO, they are able to kill the 7 evil gods and seal Orochi once again. And once Orochi has been sealed once again, Susanoo reveals to the heroes of Onmyoji that he was a time-traveling god, and he heads back to his timeline, ready to face his death 1,000 years in the past, knowing that he has once again ensured the safety of the humans that he considers children, saving the world and trusting the future to the heroes of Onmyoji. But what if I told you guys that this story is much more than just a story? This story is a mobile game that you can play today. You can download this game using the link in my description or my pinned comment, or by scanning the QR code that's on the screen right now. And once you do this, you will be able to enjoy the beautiful story of Onmyoji on your own. So what are you guys waiting for? Get to downloading Onmyoji today.
And the solar